Okay, sewing friends, buckle up your bobbin case because today we are talking about the machines that make sewing machine repair techs cry into their oil cans. You know the type. You've seen them. Shiny box. 99 stitches. A screen with more lights than a Vegas casino. Price tag, so low you double check it's not a typo. And a 5-star rating written by, let's just say, enthusiastic reviewers who bought it 4 days ago. I've spent years talking to repair shop owners, reading through hundreds of real owner reviews on sites like Consumer Affairs and Pattern Review, digging through Reddit's r/sewing threads, and yes, going down some genuinely wild eBay and Amazon rabbit holes. All so you don't have to. And what I found is a very consistent, very predictable pattern. There are certain categories of sewing machines that show up again and again in the "why did I buy this" complaints. Not because the people who bought them are actually dumb. Nobody's born knowing thread tension, but because these machines are specifically built to look impressive to someone who doesn't know what to look for yet. So consider this your don't get played list. 7 types of machines that the sewing world quietly rolls its eyes at, and exactly why. Stick around, because number 4 is the one that gets people's embroidery projects literally ruined, and number 1 is sold by the thousands every single day on Amazon right now. Let's get into it. 7. The Gibberish brand name special. Let's start with the most obvious trap. The brand name that looks like someone smashed their keyboard. You know what I'm talking about. You search sewing machine on Amazon and, sandwiched between legitimate names like Brother and Singer, you get machines from brands like Voff, Towaheim, Omer, and Juki. And no, that last one is not Juki with a typo, though it sure wants you to think that. These are what the sewing repair community calls ghost brands, companies that pop up, sell a few thousand units of the same white-labeled Chinese factory machine under a randomly generated name, and vanish before the 1-year warranty claims start rolling in. Here's the thing that should worry you more than the name. It's not just Amazon being messy. There's actually a whole ecosystem of these trademark squatting brand names now, to the point where people have built entire browser extensions just to filter them out of search results, because the flood of gibberish pseudo-brands has gotten that bad across all of Amazon. Not just sewing. Sewing machine reviewers who've handled these machines directly are blunt about it. One well-known sewing machine comparison site puts it plainly. Brands like these are cheap Chinese models that will probably not last 1 season. Not 5 years. Not 2 years. 1 season. Why does this happen? Because a real sewing machine, even an entry-level one from a company like Brother or Singer, has decades of engineering behind the tension discs, the bobbin case, the feed dog timing. These no-name specials often use the cheapest possible stamped metal or brittle plastic gears, and when something breaks, there's no manual, no part supplier, and often no company to even email. You're not buying a sewing machine. You're buying a sewing machine-shaped object with a 30-day warranty and a prayer. The tell, if you don't recognize the brand and a Google search brings back nothing but the same product listing repeated across 5 different marketplaces, close the tab. 6. The 22-in-1 Mega Stitch Combo Machine. Next up, the machine that wins on paper and loses in your living room. The Mega Stitch Count Combo Machine. You've seen the listings. 197 built-in stitches. Multifunction 2-in-1 sewing and quilting machine. Big, bold numbers designed to make you think more stitches equals more machine. And look, more stitch options isn't inherently bad. Legitimate mid-range machines from Brother or Janome absolutely offer dozens of useful stitches. The problem is specifically the ultra-cheap combo machines that use 197 stitches as a marketing headline while cutting every corner on the parts that actually matter, like the bobbin case and the tension assembly. Case in point, one actual buyer review of a computerized 197-stitch combo machine from a newer budget brand described the bobbin case jumping out of place within 1 week of light use, followed by tension that could never be properly recalibrated again. Their exact words: they wished they'd just saved their money for something from an established brand instead. That's not a rare, unlucky unit. It's a pattern that shows up over and over with these flashy combo machines, because when a company spends its entire budget promoting "look how many stitches we have," something else always gets sacrificed. Usually it's the internal timing mechanism, which, fun fact, is genuinely one of the most expensive parts of a sewing machine to manufacture correctly. It's also the one part you absolutely cannot DIY fix at home. Here's a useful gut check for the stitch count trap. A Bernina, a Juki, Or a mid-range Janome doesn't need to advertise 197 stitches, because sewists already know those companies build a good straight stitch and zigzag first, then add extras. When a brand's entire pitch is the number on the box, that's usually because the number on the box is the only good thing about it. 5. The battery-powered handheld mini machine. Number 5 is going to trigger some very specific memories for people who bought one of these as a starter machine, or worse, as a gift for a kid. I'm talking about the tiny handheld mini sewing machines, the ones shaped like a glue gun, running on batteries or a little wall plug, promising to let you sew anywhere, anytime. They're everywhere. TikTok Shop, Amazon, dollar store adjacent shelves. And they are almost universally treated as a joke by anyone who's actually sewn a seam in their life. Real talk from actual online buying communities. When someone asked in a deal forum whether one of these mini portable machines was any good, the most upvoted, community-endorsed answer was blunt. Don't even bother buying any mini portable sewing machines. Cheap Chinese junk not built for work. Another commenter in the same thread said the side opening was too small to maneuver fabric through at all and recommended spending a little more for an actual reliable brand. Here's the technical reason these fail so hard. A real sewing machine uses a rotary or oscillating hook mechanism to lock your stitch. That little hook that grabs the bobbin thread and loops it through the top thread is precision engineered. These handheld minis skip that entirely and use a simplified chain stitch mechanism that can pop apart the second you pull on the fabric. It's less sewing machine and more stapler that uses thread. Great for an emergency hem on a button-down shirt at 2 a.m. Genuinely useless for an actual sewing project, a quilt square, a garment seam, anything with real fabric tension. Where it's fine, as a $5 novelty for genuinely emergency repairs. Where it's a trap, when it's marketed and priced around $25 to $40 as if it's a legitimate entry point into the hobby. 4. The Unbranded embroidery machine clone. This one is personal for a lot of small business owners, and it's the one I mentioned at the top because of how much money people have actually lost to it. There's a specific corner of the embroidery machine market, separate from regular sewing machines, filled with unbranded or barely branded digital embroidery machines, often sold under names like Alucky, Holiyama, or Fui, marketed heavily toward people starting a home embroidery or hat embroidery side business. The feedback from actual embroidery business owners in specialized forums is rough. One user described watching multiple friends buy machines from this exact category and calling them, flatly, junk, going on to say the machines couldn't even properly handle basic 3D puff embroidery on hats, which is a bread-and-butter job for any real embroidery machine. Industry veterans in that same conversation pointed people instead toward the established names in embroidery, Taijima, CSK, Baruden, Melco, as the actual standard for anyone starting a real embroidery operation, even though those machines cost significantly more. Here's why this one stings extra. Unlike a $30 mini sewing machine where the stakes are low, these unbranded embroidery machines are often priced in the $800 to $2,000 range, marketed specifically at people trying to start a small business selling custom hats, jerseys, or apparel. When the machine can't hold digitizing accuracy or breaks down mid-order, that's not just an annoying hobby setback. That's a business with unfulfilled Etsy orders and an angry customer. The lesson here isn't never buy an affordable embroidery machine. It's that embroidery machines are precision digital devices, and this is one category where the brand name is doing real, measurable work. It's the difference between runs a hat design perfectly and chews up a bobbin thread and your customer's deposit. 3. The suspiciously cheap industrial clone. Moving into slightly more advanced territory now because even experienced sewists get tempted by this one, the industrial machine clone. If you've ever looked into upgrading to a real industrial straight-stitch machine, the kind leatherworkers and small manufacturers use, you've probably run into Chinese clone versions of famous industrial machines, like clones of the Juki DDL series. These show up under a rotating cast of brand names, often at half the price of the real thing, and they're specifically designed to look nearly identical to the legitimate industrial machine, right down to the paint job. The catch, according to people who actually run small leather and apparel shops and have tested both, The clones can genuinely work fine for casual or light use, but the quality control is wildly inconsistent machine to machine. You might get a decent one. You might get one with a poorly hardened hook race that wears out in months instead of years, which, on an industrial machine running for hours a day, is the difference between a tool that pays for itself and a tool that becomes a $600 doorstop. This category is a little different from the others on this list because it's not automatically a scam. Some of these clone manufacturers genuinely produce usable machines. But it's the single riskiest gamble on this list because you often can't tell which one you're getting until you've already put 50 hours of stitching through it. For a hobbyist, that risk might be fine. For anyone trying to run a business on that machine, it's a really expensive way to find out you should have bought the real Juki, Brother, or Conso from the start. 2. The too good to be true budget entry model from an otherwise trusted brand. Okay, this one's going to be controversial, so let me be really clear up front. I am not telling you to avoid Singer as a company. Singer has been making sewing machines since the 1850s, and their heavy-duty line, like the HD 500, currently running around $280 to $400, is a genuinely solid, metal frame machine that repair techs consistently recommend. What I am telling you to watch out for is the rock-bottom entry tier that even trusted legacy brands put out to hit a specific low price point. Machines built almost entirely from plastic, sold under subnames like Simple, and priced anywhere from $80 to $150. The actual owner reviews on these are rough, and there are a lot of them. One recent buyer described their machine as defective right out of the box, stopping and stuttering mid-stitch, with a bobbin thread that became impossible to pull up. Another, someone who said they'd been sewing for 50 years, described 3 separate defects showing up immediately, including a plastic bobbin holder where they expected metal, and said it was more frustrating than any machine they'd used in 5 decades of sewing. A different owner summed up the general sentiment on a well-known sewing machine review database, noting that after upgrading past the entry-level plastic models, previous owners agreed the older, more metal-heavy machines simply held up better. Here's the pattern worth remembering. It's not that Singer is bad or Brother is bad. It's that every big brand has a bottom-tier product line built to hit an eye-catching price point on Walmart and Amazon search results, and that bottom tier is where the corners get cut. The brand name on the box gives you false confidence. You think, oh, it's Singer, they've been around forever, while the actual machine in your hands is built to a completely different, much lower standard than the brand's reputation suggests. The fix: when shopping a trusted brand, don't just check the logo. Check the specific model's reviews and lean toward the heavy-duty, professional, or mid-tier lines rather than the absolute cheapest option with a brand name slapped on it. 1. Whatever random machine wins the lowest price, sorted by popularity, Amazon search. And now, the number 1 spot, which isn't really one specific brand at all. It's a buying habit, and it's the one that quietly causes more sewing machine disappointment than every other item on this list combined. It's this: opening Amazon, typing sewing machine, sorting by either lowest price or by star rating, and buying whatever pops up at the top without checking who actually makes it, what it's actually made of, or what real long-term owners are saying about it a year later instead of a week later. Here's why this is genuinely the sneakiest trap on the entire list. Amazon's search and review system rewards machines that get a burst of 5-star reviews in their first 30 days, because that's exactly the window before people discover the tension is off, the timing slips, or the bobbin case cracks. Repair shop professionals who've handled thousands of machines are consistent on this exact point. The difference between a machine that lasts decades and one that fails in weeks often isn't visible in a first-week review at all. It's in the build quality of the internal gears and frame, something a brand new owner literally cannot evaluate yet, no matter how excited that first review is. That's exactly how brands from every single item on this list, the gibberish names, the mega-stitch combos, the plastic entry tiers, end up with a wall of glowing 5-star reviews despite a well-documented pattern of failing months later. The reviews aren't lying to you. They're just reviewing week 1, not year 2. So the real number 1 thing dumb people, and again I mean this affectionately, we've all done it, buy isn't a brand at all. It's the search result. It's trusting a sort by popularity algorithm to do the homework that a 2-minute search on a dedicated sewing forum or a repair tech's honest opinion would do far better. How to actually shop smart. Quick recap. So, here's your cheat sheet before you go machine shopping. Recognize the brand name. If a 2-second Google search brings up nothing but the same listing repeated on 5 marketplaces, that's your answer. Don't be dazzled by stitch count. A clean straight stitch and zigzag from a real brand beats 197 stitches from a mystery company every time. Handheld mini machines are for emergencies, not projects. For embroidery specifically, the brand name matters even more than for regular sewing. This is where established names like Brother, Janome, and Taijima earn their price tag. Industrial clones can work, but they're a gamble. Only take that risk if a failure won't hurt your business. Even trusted brands have a cheap bottom tier. Check the specific model, not just the logo. And above all, don't buy the first thing that shows up sorted by popularity. Read reviews from owners who've had the machine for a year, not a week. Alright, that's the list. 7 ways to accidentally buy a sewing machine-shaped disappointment, and how to dodge every single one of them. If this saved you from clicking by now on something regrettable, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more sewists who need to see it before they check out. And if you've got a horror story about a machine you regret buying, or a budget machine that actually surprised you in a good way, drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and honestly, some of the best video ideas on this channel come straight from your comments. Subscribe if you want more real talk about machines, techniques, and the sewing industry. No fluff, no sponsored nonsense, just what actually works. I'll see you in the next one. Now go thread that bobbin correctly.